Hello, welcome to my How to Use Sketchbook Quick Tip series. This is a series where I will show you quick and easy tips that will help you on your journey learning Sketchbook. If you would like a longer, more comprehensive and in-depth look at these same tips, you can follow the link above, which is a longer video of these very same tips. Otherwise, if you don't have a lot of time, these quick tips are for you. Thanks for watching and enjoy! This quick tip will cover a few things. The first will be some of the blend modes that the brush settings come with. The other item will be the different color adjustments that you can use to fine-tune your illustrations. And the last tip we will cover today will be about what happens if you change the size of an element in your illustration. If you make an element very large and then make it small again, it will start to compress the element and it'll start to look fuzzy. So we will talk a little bit about that too. All right, so let's get right to it, and thanks for watching. Now, you do have that soft glow layer blend mode, but you also have the glow in here. I'm going to darken this background, and this one tends to be a little bit brighter. So we have a darker color, this darker blue, but look how much it shines. And as you overlap your brush marks, it gets brighter. So if that glow blending mode on your layer isn't quite enough, you can always switch the brush to the glow brush mode. Let's see what we get when we have both of them on. So you get an even brighter. So again, whatever you need to achieve, you have your options. You can also play around with these other blend modes. That one disappeared. Hard light and soft light also do different things. Yeah, it's fun to just play around and see what happens, because the best part about real painting is when colors blend together and something that you had not really intended happens. And I had a teacher in college who called them happy mistakes. It's not really a mistake, it just ends up being, oh, that's really cool, I like that. And then you try to achieve it again. And that kind of happens in here, especially when you start playing around with the different blend modes, both on the layers and with the brushes. So in keeping with these different blend modes and all the ways you can play with your blobs of paint and make them look more interesting, hue, saturation, and luminescence, what does that do? So you can change the hue completely. Let's say you started with a color and you don't want to redo everything you just painted. If it's not just straight up black and white, you can come in here and literally change the color. You can change how saturated it is, how gray it is, and how bright it is. Turn on a better color. I like blues. You might notice here too that even though I'm in the red, it's turning green. That's because the color was a blue to begin with. And as you go over these colors, it's actually going into the opposite. It's removing some of that color from it and adding its opposite hue, I think. The other one, the color balance, is just adjusting this color that you already have without completely changing it. So we have midtones, highlights, and shadows here. So if we do the shadow, it's only going to change the darkest areas. So now we are adding more red, and it does change the whole thing. It's not like a straight up, lightest areas are not going to change. It's kind of changing it lightly. See, now I'm bringing more cyan into it. And you can do that with all of these. So this is a more controlled way of adjusting your colors. Highlights. See, now you don't see a lot changing in here because it's only looking for the brightest areas. Add more green. Let's say you want it more of an aqua blue. You can add more green, add a little bit more of this, and maybe a little bit more blue. See? So that's always fun to play with. And of course, these midtones, highlights, and shadows in this particular glob of paint is not very extreme. There's not that much contrast happening. So you're not seeing a huge difference between the lights and the darks. Resizing your images. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're not sure about your composition and you have your drawing here that you kind of finished and you decided, I don't know how I'm going to get other images in here. You can either draw them all and kind of have them simple and then work with them, but at the same time I want this image nice and big because it's easier to draw these details. I don't want to scale down my guide drawing, my reference, my simple line drawing that I used to fill in here. I want it big to start with and then resize it and fit it in the whole composition. And that's actually what I did. That's actually what I did with this other image. I did two separate pictures. I did this one with the horse. I did this guy here. And then I started putting them in here. And then I painted them with the color. And actually he was a little bit bigger. And then I didn't like how big he was. So I made him even smaller. But you don't want to do that too much. So that's why I did separate images and then copy and paste them into a new document that will be the final document. The reason you have to be careful with resizing your finished drawings, I will show you why, because this is just a copy and it's not going to ruin it. So let's say I'm like, okay, now I need this smaller. Let's bring her down like this. We'll put her in over here. Okay, done. I hit done, right? That sets it, that saves it like that. But then I'm like, oh wait, she's way too small. So I'll go back in here and I resize it up again. I hit done. I zoom in. You don't see a difference yet, but the more you do this, there's a slight difference, but the more you do this, it's compressing your picture each time. I found this out with my last drawing that I did with the speed art time-lapse one on YouTube with the Native American and all of that, the warrior ones. The Native American one, I didn't like where he was placed on the page, so I kept resizing him, and he started to get fuzzy looking, and the details were not nice and clear anymore. All those pencil lines I had drawn here, you can really start to see this now. See, it doesn't even let me bring it up any larger than this. So if I zoom in now, it's starting to get a little fuzzier, especially in the fine lines in the details, because every time you resize it, it's changing its pixel ratio too. So the more I do it, let's say, let's put her over here. Let me look at the whole thing. No, I don't like that again. Let's bring her back over here. I mean, if you're not sure what you want and you end up doing this, especially if you want it to eventually be a poster. Now I'm really seeing the difference now. It's kind of like when you took or created a really nice picture and then you uploaded it to Facebook to share it, and then you're like, oh, that's not what it looked like at all. You can't see this, and the details are all muddy and fuzzy, even though you uploaded to HD, it still looks terrible. That's because Facebook compresses everything you put on there, even if you tell it you want it HD. So you know, be very aware of your playing around with your image after you've created and done all the work. So that's why I wanted it big to work with. So I did it on a separate document. She's crooked, let's fix her. It also sets your rotation and the scales, you know, every time you hit done. So now it thinks I've got it rotated at 8 degrees, even though it's actually back to 0 now. So it takes the last time. So every time you do this, it's saved, and it takes the last time and just changes it from that, which is why it keeps recompressing it too every time you adjust it. So that can be annoying if you forget. I ran into that problem myself. That was a how to use Autodesk Sketchbook quick tip. Be sure to like and subscribe for more, as I will have more to come. Thanks for watching and stay creative.